Do you believe in blind justice? That classic image of a blindfolded goddess, holding scales, weighing only the facts. Now imagine the blindfold is replaced by a sensor and the scales by a processor. Imagine your freedom, your future, no longer depends on a jury of your peers, but on a risk score generated by lines of code that no one, not even its creators, can fully explain. This isn't the plot of a science fiction film. It's the silent reality creeping into the world's courtrooms. A digital gavel, unseen and relentless, is falling right now, deciding who stays locked up and who walks free. And the sound it makes is silence. A silence that hides a terrifying truth. The machine has learned to judge, but we never taught it about mercy. It operates on the cold logic of probability, and in that calculation, the presumption of innocence is just a variable to be discarded. Where does an algorithm get its sense of fair and unfair? It isn't born with it, it learns. It devours decades, centuries of human data, arrest records, judicial sentences, police reports, and this is where the poison enters the system. Because this data isn't pure, it's a record of our own biases. Every unjustified police stop, every disproportionate sentence, every over-policed community, all of it becomes the AI's nourishment. It learns from a stained past and with frightening efficiency projects that same past onto the future. It's the original sin of the digital age. The machine isn't creating a new kind of discrimination. It's automating our own. It takes human prejudice, washes it of its messy appearance, and hands it back as clean, objective, and indisputable mathematical truth. And we, mesmerized by the sheen of technology, accept the sentence without questioning where the ink came from. For the programmer, it all begins with elegant tools. Python, with its clean syntax, and its powerful libraries like NumPy and Pandas, are the building blocks of the modern world. They allow for the manipulation of vast datasets with superhuman speed and precision. The goal is noble: to find patterns, to create order from chaos. But what happens when the chaos you're ordering is human society itself, with all its flaws? A data scientist might use Pandas to clean a dataset of criminal records, not realizing they are erasing the context of entire lives. They might use NumPy to calculate risk vectors without understanding that each number represents a soul. These tools have no morals. They are agnostic. But in the hands of a system that values efficiency over equity, they become the architecture of inequality. Programming logic, once used to solve problems, is now used to classify people, cementing biases into rigid and merciless software frameworks. If you need a name for the ghost in the judicial machine, call it Compass. Correctional offender management profiling for alternative sanctions. A corporate name for a system that promised to predict criminal reoffending. Used across several US states, it assigned a risk score to defendants, influencing sentences and parole decisions. In 2016, a ProPublica investigation exposed its catastrophic flaw. The algorithm was systematically biased against Black defendants. They were nearly twice as likely to be incorrectly labeled as high risk for future crimes as their white counterparts. Meanwhile, white defendants were more often mislabeled as low risk. The company behind Compass defended its software, claiming accuracy on other metrics. But the truth was undeniable. The code reflected and amplified the justice system's worst prejudices. Compass wasn't predicting future crime. It was predicting the next police target based on skin color. While courts were trusting flawed code, a researcher at the MIT Media Lab decided to test the eyes of AI. Joy Buolamwini, founder of the Algorithmic Justice League, discovered something disturbing. The most advanced facial recognition systems from tech giants were brilliant at identifying white men. But when the face was that of a black woman, the error rate skyrocketed to nearly 35%. Her own face wasn't recognized until she wore a white mask. Her work, which she calls coded poetry, wasn't just an academic paper. It was an alarm bell. She exposed that the datasets used to train these AIs were overwhelmingly male and white. The machines, therefore, were learning to see a world that ignored or misidentified millions of people. What if this same system is used to identify a suspect in a crowd? Wolamwini's warning is clear. A machine that cannot see your face cannot be trusted to judge your life. What is the most dangerous argument for algorithmic justice? Its supposed objectivity. But this objectivity is an illusion that hides a profound problem: the black box dilemma. Many of the most powerful algorithms, especially deep learning models, are so complex that their own creators cannot trace the exact path that led to a specific decision. The machine learns, creating its own neural connections, its own internal rules. When a judge asks the system, "Why did this defendant receive a high-risk score?" the answer is, essentially, mathematical silence. There is no reason that can be cross-examined in court. There is no logic that can be challenged by a defense attorney. You cannot cross-examine an algorithm. This opacity shatters a fundamental pillar of justice: accountability. If no one understands how the decision was made, who is responsible when the system is wrong? The company? The programmer? The judge who trusted it? The black box absolves everyone, leaving the victim of the error with no recourse. Algorithmic logic isn't content to judge the past. It wants to predict the future. Enter predictive policing. Software that analyzes historical crime data to generate hotspots, maps showing where a crime is most likely to occur. Police are then dispatched to patrol these areas more intensely. It sounds efficient, right? But remember the original sin of data. If police have historically over-patrolled minority neighborhoods, arrest data will be higher in those areas. The algorithm then identifies these same neighborhoods as hotspots. More police are sent, more arrests for minor offenses are made, which generates more data, which confirms to the algorithm that it was right. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, a feedback loop that justifies and intensifies policing in already marginalized communities, while leaving other areas virtually invisible. You no longer have to commit a crime to be a suspect. You just have to live in the wrong zip code. We talk about data, algorithms, systems. But behind every percentage, every data point, there is a life. Think of Robert Julian Borchak, a Michigan man who was arrested because a facial recognition software misidentified him as a shoplifter. Think of the thousands of defendants who received longer sentences or were denied parole because of a Compass risk score. To the system, the difference between a score of 4.9 and 5.1 might be a simple rounding error. To a person, it's the difference between going home to their family or spending more years behind bars. This is the human cost of algorithmic efficiency. These are the lives fragmented by a logic that doesn't understand remorse, rehabilitation, or the potential for change. The machine calculates risk, but it cannot measure the weight of hope. And in that cold calculation, humanity is always the first variable to be eliminated. What happens when you try to insert a conscience into the machine from the inside? You hit a wall of corporate indifference. Raman Chowdhury, founder of Humane Intelligence, has lived this battle. In leadership roles for AI ethics at giants like Accenture and Twitter, her mission was to build safeguards, to ensure algorithms served humanity, not the other way around. But the truth she and other experts have found is grim. Ethics is too often treated as a public relations item, not an engineering pillar. Responsible AI teams are frequently underfunded, siloed, and their recommendations ignored in the name of speed and profit. The fight isn't against malicious code, but against a culture that rewards growth at all costs. The existence of voices like Chowdhury's inside these tech fortresses is critical, but their struggle exposes the inconvenient truth. Responsibility can't just be a department. It needs to be the operating system. And right now, it's just an app that can be closed at any time. Amidst this darkness, there are pockets of light. There are those who believe the same tools that build inequality can be used to dismantle it. Researchers like Rediet Abebe, a mathematician and computer scientist, dedicate their work to exploring how algorithms can be used for social good. Instead of predicting criminality, her work seeks to optimize the distribution of resources to underserved communities or identify inequities in access to opportunity. This isn't about rejecting technology, but about redirecting its power. It's about asking different questions. Instead of asking, "Who's the biggest risk?" it asks, "Who needs the most help?" This requires a fundamental shift in how we design these systems, moving from a mindset of punishment and control to one of support and equity. It is a harder path, one that doesn't offer the easy, efficient solutions that corporations love. But it's the only path that might lead to a justice that is truly intelligent. Let's project this trajectory forward. What happens when AI is no longer just an advisor, but the final authority? Imagine a courtroom in 2040. There is no human judge, just a calm interface and a synthesized voice. The AI analyzes all evidence, the defendant's genetic history, their social media interactions, their buying patterns. And in microseconds, it delivers a verdict and a sentence, optimized for maximum social efficiency. The defense and prosecution become obsolete. The concept of a trial by your peers, a relic. This might sound like a perfect system, free from human error and bias, but it would be a soulless system, a system where justice becomes synonymous with risk management, where the complexity of the human experience is reduced to a probability calculation. The question we must ask now is not if we can build such a system, but if we should. In our quest for perfect justice, we risk creating the perfect tyranny. In the end, the greatest risk of algorithmic justice lies not in the silicon, but within ourselves. The code is not the villain. The algorithm is a mirror. It has no intentions, no malice. It simply reflects, with brutal clarity, the data we feed it. It reflects our biases, our flaws, our historical inequalities. And it forces us to look at that image. Figures like Alan Turing gave us the question, can machines think? Now, modern voices like Joy Buolamwini and Raman Chowdhury give us the burden of the answer. How do we ensure they think responsibly? Blaming the machine is easy. It's the coward's way out. The real challenge is to look at the reflection it shows us and have the courage to fix ourselves. The final question, then, is not whether we will shape AI, but whether we are willing to be shaped by the truth it reveals about us.